on the far right, including Donald Trump and many of his lackeys, are blaming and putting it all on Democrat policy and Gavin Newsom when these fires started in residential areas. It has nothing to do with forest fires and everything to do with residential areas and 100-mile-per-hour winds. There's not one policy that could have changed what is taking course here. But again, these people on the far right are either not smart enough to understand that or they just don't care. So to talk to us a little bit about this and certainly a lot of other topics as well, one of my favorite follows on social media. She's known as JoJoFromJerz, and I think she's the best, and I always love her commentary. Joanna Carducci joining us right now on PTL. JoJo, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Hi, Brian. I'm great. How are you?
I am doing okay. It's great to see you as always. I hope you had a great new year. I wanted to start off by talking to you about a lot of other topics, but I have to start off by talking about these wildfires in California. I would imagine by now you probably saw on Truth Social Donald Trump's tweet going after Gavin Newsom and Democrats, and now he's blaming Joe Biden. What do you make of that?
I mean, it's him at his finest, right? Like, it's not about the people who are suffering. It's not about the catastrophe that is unfolding. It's not about humanity. It's about who can I blame in this moment? How can I make this about me? And it pretends what we already know we should be bracing for, what Gavin Newsom knows he should be bracing for, what Donald Trump has said he will do, which is to withhold emergency aid from people and from states and from American citizens because the governor of that state hasn't kowtowed enough to them, because the governor of that state hasn't kissed his butt. He did this with COVID. J.B. Pritzker said so. He said he will do it with Gavin Newsom and the people of California, many of which who voted for him, but it doesn't matter because he cannot possibly put human suffering anywhere on the scale of things that matter to him. It's always going to be about him, himself, his retribution, his revenge, his grudges, you name it. And it's truly reprehensible.
Well said. I agree with you. And then I take to social media yesterday, JoJo. I'm on X, and I see all these right wingers with large platforms on X they started to do what Donald Trump did today. They're blaming Gavin Newsom. And I say to myself, first of all, they have no idea what's going on in California. They have no idea that these 100-mile-per-hour winds, it started in a residential area, record low rainfall this year in California. They have no idea what they're talking about. And I said to myself, they don't care because all they care about is engagement and making a few $100 to get reactions from people while there are literally people that are dying and losing their livelihood in California.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen them do this before, right? So the storms, the hurricanes that ravaged Tennessee and North Carolina and lots of parts of the South, Georgia, et cetera. We saw this with Donald Trump's attack on FEMA, which was so egregious, and also trafficked in by all of his, merry band of barnacle freaking nitwit cultists. It's very dangerous because what happens is you create this environment of mistrust and distrust in the government when they're coming to try and help you. And then you're not actually heeding their warnings when they say to do things like evacuate. Like, you're talking about a fire. If they say evacuate and you say, I don't trust you, I'm not going to evacuate, by the time you see the fire outside your front door, it's too late, right? Yeah. Hurricanes, very similar, obviously different, very wet from the standpoint of water. But nonetheless, when the authorities who are in charge are telling you what you need to be doing and you're saying, I don't trust you because I have been told not to trust you because what you're really trying to do is take something from me, lives are going to be lost. And you're now entrusting once again the most powerful office in the world to someone who has absolutely no regard for anyone else's health or safety. And the chaos that ensues when you don't trust authorities is the kind of it's an opportunity that Donald Trump loves to take advantage of. And it's sick and sadistic and it's sad and scary. And I keep going back to this thing, for instance, about them being Trump voters too. The fire doesn't care how you vote. What's his name? James Woods is crying on social. And look, I fucking hate that guy, right? I hate that guy. But I'm not going to be like, yay, your house burned down.
That was my next question. We think alike there. So I watched that clip as you did, James Woods, JoJo, and I'm with you. Obviously, we don't wish this upon anybody. And I thought his emotion on CNN, more than understandable. Yeah. More than understandable. Any human being would react that way. However, these are the same kinds of people that say you're less of a man if you cry. We remember what happened with Tim Walz's son. It was the James Woods types that were attacking Tim Walz's son for crying. But it's okay to cry if it happens to you, if you're a MAGA Republican. But if it happens to somebody else where they're in a terrible situation, attack. Yeah. So while I feel for his family, James Woods voted for a guy who thinks global warming is a hoax.
Right. No, you're right. And I 1,000% agree with you that, like, there's so much hypocrisy there, right? Or if it's, again, it's what people say is like, oh, the eating people faces party. Like, I didn't think the leopard was going to eat my face. Like, I didn't think that, I mean, like, my house was going to be burned down. Right. But nonetheless, here's where I come back to. Maybe to a fault, I guess. This is probably a problem for me. But I still think we can be the bigger people in the room, right? I still think that in these cases, another example, when Nazi Nick Fuentes was doxxed, I was not out there spreading his personal information. I think he deserves every terrible thing that comes his way, but I don't want to say I have a permission structure where that's okay if it's the bad guy, because then I'm saying it's okay if you do that to me. Right. So I think James Woods can just be wrong for being a hypocrite and for judging people for having emotions and F your feelings crowds. And I can still look at him, as much as I can't stand him, and say, I would not wish this upon my worst enemy. Right. I mean, I think still separates us from them. And maybe that makes me naive. It probably does. Yeah.
It doesn't, because I said the exact same thing on X today, and Blue Sky said, I don't wish this upon anybody. And I meant it when I said that, but there's however, and I said, however, this is the same guy who attacks men for crying, right? And he just did it on CNN, which I don't have a problem with, and it's understandable. It's been such a crazy few weeks of a news cycle. I feel like I've been saying that since Donald Trump got into office. Yeah. But with that being said, I mean, the Mar-a-Lago press conference yesterday, crazy. He's talking about the possibility of using military force to take over Greenland. And he's also saying the same thing about the Panama Canal. He took the opportunity yesterday, days after Jimmy Carter died, to attack Jimmy Carter on policy. He did the same. He's done the same thing before. Powell, he did the same thing with Powell. He attacks these people on policy after they die, like hours after they die. I mean, what did you make, JoJo, of that hour-long Mar-a-Lago press conference yesterday?
I mean, that is exactly right. And it's madness to me, because I have been so long bracing for the awful, for the autocratic, for the evil, for the sexist, for the xenophobic, for the racist, for the hate. I've been bracing for all of that. And what I somehow seem to have not really settled my mind and heart and soul on being ready for is the stupid. It's the stupid, the endless effing stupid of having someone like that at the helm of our country. The embarrassment of that. He's talking about itchy heaters, which sounds some kind of innuendo. You would say you'd pick up at like a brothel, itchy heaters, taking over Greenland and Canada, and taking back the Panama Canal as if it was ever taken from us, and renaming the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, which the Mexican president has now pointed out, by the way, that much of America was actually part of Mexico, so that they're going to reclaim the part of America that was part of Mexico and call it American Mexico. This stupid is that's the part where you're you have to laugh, because if you don't laugh, you're going to lose your mind, or you're going to think you lost your mind. But it is so embarrassing. It is relentless. He talked about whales going crazy.
Windmills.
We're back to windmills. I mean, it is. When do we get to be great again? Because I am really just embarrassed, and you're not in office yet.
And that's a good point.
Right.
That's a good point.
A teeny tiny taste of what's to come, but also this Greenland, Panama, Canada stuff. There's a million trillion theories or perspectives on what it is that he's doing, if he's doing anything intentional, whatever. Is it just that he's trying to distract us, like some people like Ben Meiselas think? Is it that this really is a strategic move for Putin, which there's lots of arguments to be made there geopolitically? Is this him saying, I want a permission structure for China to take over Taiwan, or for Putin to go into Poland? Yeah. Is it, what is this madness? Is the Panamanian thing about a case he's got going down there for corruption into his businesses? And I think it's all of it. I think it's all of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's all of it as well. But most importantly, there has to be something in it for him. Number one priority is only Donald Trump. So I
Yeah.
agree with you 100% there. And what you said, I agree with when it comes to this is like the next 4 years. We've
Yeah.
seen chaos the last couple of weeks. He's not even in office yet. But, with the tragedy that took place in New Orleans, and I had one of the victims on my show yesterday, and they blame migrants, they blame the open border when it turned out this was a man who was born in the United States, born in Texas, who served the country. The Tesla explosion right here in my backyard, they blamed it on the radical left when it turned out the guy who killed himself was actually a staunch Trump supporter. Yeah, the guy in New Orleans was also a registered Republican, but I would never bring this stuff up, JoJo, if they didn't bring politics into it. My first reaction, as yours, is, oh my God, this is horrible, the loss of life. We need to be there for the victims and their families, find out why they did this. We don't make it political, and I would have reacted the same way if Trump was in office. But why is it all these people on the far right, their first reaction usually isn't, oh my God, my thoughts and prayers. No, it's usually blaming Joe Biden, blaming migrants. And then if that doesn't work, like Libs of TikTok, which is a despicable account on X, they blame it on DEI hires. They're doing the same thing today. They're blaming it on DEI hires within the fire departments in Los Angeles.
Oh my
Why
God.
do they blame migrants? And if that conspiracy theory doesn't work, they blame black people. And if that doesn't work, they just move on to the next tragedy. Why is that?
Well, and these are the same people who tell you that it's too soon to talk politics in the wake of a school shooting, right? It was too soon in the wake of Parkland. It was too soon in the wake of Sandy Hook. It was too soon in the wake of all of these mass shootings to talk about politics because they don't want to talk about politics. They're too busy offering their thoughts and prayers, which basically means nothing, essentially, right? Because they're not going to do anything. Thoughts and prayers aren't working clearly. But as soon as these tragedies happened, as soon as they happened, people didn't even know their loved ones were dead yet. They instantly were blaming this on immigrants. They were pinning it on a failing at the border. And to your point, they never corrected that. They never corrected those things. What they did was they just kept pivoting and moving and making the target a little more nebulous so that it wasn't actually, maybe they didn't have to say that it was an immigrant because it wasn't. They were both American born. One of them, like you said, was a Trumper. One was active military. They couldn't blame it on the border. So what they did instead was they pivoted to this. Well, it's still the Democrats' fault. It's still Joe Biden's fault. It's DEI's fault because obviously these agencies are weak because they can't protect us, as if attacks never happened when Donald Trump was in office because we didn't have the Tree of Life Synagogue or anything else happened when he was there. We couldn't make the same argument that it was the DEI hires who didn't stop those things from happening. But the thing is, they call themselves the pro-life party. That is just not true. It's simply a fallacy. They don't care. Once you're born, it's game over. Like, they don't care what happens to you after that, and they don't want to give you a darn thing. But all they want to do is force you to be born, and that's not even about you. That's about the woman, and it's about power, and it's about control. But I mean, what really, again, going back to what we have to brace for is that at the helm, we're going to have once again an individual who is in moments of crisis in this country going to use the world's largest bully pulpit to spread disinformation. Why? To appease his own ego and to divide this country rather than unify, because that's what the choice is all about, right? When you see a moment of crisis as a leader, as what we're supposed to have, a consoler in chief, I don't care if you're not the squishiest, warmest, whatever, fuzziest person in the world, if you're not as good at it inherently as Joe Biden, you still have to fill some kind of spot that unifies the country in a moment of crisis. We look to that. We just do. It's like looking to your parents when you're scared, or whatever, looking for the grown-ups in the room, looking for the flight attendants, whatever it is, the helpers. We do that as a country. And we're going to once again have at the helm someone who not only does not want anything to do with any of that, but he's going to use those moments to divide us instead. That is what he does time after time. Look at New Orleans. Look at the Tesla thing. Look at this, this crisis right now. And this with California, this is what he does. He's intentionally trying to pit people against each other when they're at their most vulnerable, most needy, and it's really grotesque.
That is the worst kind of human being, when you take advantage of somebody when they're like you just said, when they're very vulnerable, and that's exactly what Donald Trump does. If you're just joining us, she is known as JoJoFromJerz on social media. I follow her everywhere, of course, Blue Sky now and X, and I've been following her account for years. And I wanted to talk a little bit about symbolism for a moment. I thought when Kamala Harris was swearing in Senator from Nebraska and her husband, and, I had Don Lemon on the other day, and he called him a racist piece of you-know-what, and I agree with Don Lemon. I thought that was very symbolic of not every Republican, but certainly the MAGA Republican base, where you have this middle-aged, old, white, crusty Republican who has no problem shaking everybody's hand in the House chambers there until it comes to a woman of color. And then the Republicans make excuses, the MAGA Republicans. Oh, he was holding a cane when he had his hand free after the Bible. He had his hand free. So that's a lie. Oh, well, he had a stroke. Oh, really? I didn't know that if you have a stroke in this country, that means you could only shake white people's hands and not women of color. I didn't know that's what happens.
Racism.
Yeah, I didn't know when you have a stroke, automatically you turn into a grand wizard. But I mean, to me, it was a symbolic moment for where the MAGA Republican Party is at.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're 100% right. And look, Kamala knew what was up the second it happened. You saw her face, and that's a woman who knows what's going on. Everyone, you could see that as clear as day. The wife knew what was going on. I mean, this is, again, you look back when Mike Pence was swearing her in, he had no problem shaking his hand. And you could just see it all over his face. The guy looks like a freaking cadaver, by the way. Like, dude, just looks like E.T. in the ditch. Like, get some sun, man. Get outside and vitamin K make you less evil. But no, that is so indicative of the MAGA mindset. He is the embodiment of it, right? Like this old, crusty white dude who's like, no, the future is coming. The electorate's evolving. I don't like it. Where's Voldemort when I need him? It's like, grow up. It's so petulant and stupid and petty. And by the way, that's why your grasp on power is being taken from you, because you don't deserve it, because you never did. You didn't do anything to earn it. And now you're upset because an intelligent, articulate, smart, kind, compassionate, forward-thinking black woman is standing in front of you in a position of power. And you don't like that because it makes you feel inferior when you probably should feel inferior because you're utterly unremarkable. And by the way, your wife has an accomplishment and you made her look like a schmuck. Good job, right? Like you're right about that. Your wife, everybody questioned her judgment because who the hell would marry a jerk like that?
That's very true.
Right?
Very true. Well, Melania Trump, but that's very, very true.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that his wife has remained completely silent? Her silence is deafening. Even if she decided to lie, like she could have even lied and said, well, my husband, he's sorry, he didn't do it intentionally, or, any sort of excuse. She didn't even say anything, and she damn well knows he's getting from even both sides of the aisle. I've even heard some Republicans that I talked to that say, that was this man is a professor at a college university. And she doesn't say a word, keeps quiet. Imagine the conversations they have behind closed doors about Kamala Harris and the words that they used.
Right.
Look at the behavior in public.
Again, what does that signal to you about what kind of a representative for her constituents she is? If she can't stand up and either disavow what he did by saying, oh, look, we don't agree, we don't align on this stuff, he's his own person, whatever, or separate herself from it in some way, or even defend it, even, God forbid, say, or lie, whatever, just something so that she puts her public face, a public statement to the thing. But instead, what does she do? She shrinks away, like this sort of, like she relegates herself to this other status where she doesn't even think she should respond because maybe women should be quiet, or like, to me, that signals that this is not an autonomous human being. This is a person who is clearly in a marriage with someone who can act like that towards women. So what kind of senator would she possibly make? She's gonna just fall in line like the rest of them, and they stick their heads in the sand and they go along and get along. And to me, that is one of the greatest sort of disservices to this country and to the American people, because why are you in Congress if you're not there to represent the needs of your people, of your constituents? You're not there to acquiesce to a madman. You're not there to forgive and forget that your husband is a racist, sexist pig. Like you either have a voice that you use or get out. Like, go do something else. Go be a greeter at Walmart. Go wash hair. Go clean, urinal cakes at truck stops. Go do something else. But being a United States Senator is supposed to come with more responsibility than that. And frankly, it's not at all surprising, but this is who they are.
I think she's just like him, only she hides it better. That's what I
Probably.
think. That's my personal opinion. All right, so here we are, a little under 2 weeks of the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris ticket. I guess a two-part question. I wanted to ask you about the 4-year anniversary of January 6th first, and the concern being that in Trump's first day in office, he's going to be pardoning those that were responsible for January 6th, and possibly even including those who attacked police officers with their own batons. What do you make of that, and what do you think that will do the future of this country, and what precedents does that set? Because JoJo, a lot of these MAGA Republicans have such a hard time with Joe Biden pardoning his son, who didn't commit any violent crimes, by the way.
Yeah.
What do you think it will mean for the country when, in fact, and if, in fact, Donald Trump does do this?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that it absolutely breaks my heart, right? Because I like so many, I'm sure you too, when I watched that unfold in real time, I was devastated. I was absolutely gutted, devastated, terrified, heartbroken, gobsmacked, shocked, worried, very worried, but really I grieved for our country. And my children were watching it which is crazy, but I worked as an educator and we worked full days, and our kids were in school half days, which doesn't make any sense. But there were 2 pods of, so the kids would go in the AM and then you get a new pod in the PM, and the kids would go do virtual school. So my kids went to a friend's house to do their virtual school in the afternoons so I could work. So I was at school when it started, and my kids were at her house. And by the time I got there, still like reeling, watching, trying to download what's happening and trying to figure this out myself, I get to her house and it's on. And my kids were watching and they're both just sobbing. And then my daughter Abby gets up and she says, they're going to come to our house next. So because why wouldn't you think that? Why wouldn't you think that? You're watching the Capitol being attacked by people who live here. Why wouldn't you think that? And it was an incredibly dark day for this country that I thought at the time, very foolishly, as I now know, I really thought it was a game changer. I thought, well, that's the end of Donald Trump. That's it. There is no way anyone can align themselves with this person now. He is watching this all unfold. And I remember thinking, you probably too, where is he? Why isn't he stopping this? How is this? Where's the military? Where is the response? Where is he? And I just pictured, I don't know if you watched Game of Thrones, but like if you did, Cersei, right? Like it reminded me very much of how she was watching the chaos unfold. That's all I could think about was that he was like Cersei. And so the next day we had that little reprieve where they were, I'm out, I'm done, it's good enough. And then they went to the airport and they got booed by the cultists. And then they're like, I'm back, I'm going down to Mar-a-Lago. And so the mere idea that day could be sane-washed, whitewashed, revised out, removed from the reality of our country's history, makes me want to throw up, makes me want to cry, makes me want to throw something, makes me want to scream and shout and stomp my feet. It makes me so angry and incensed that it's like my whole body fills with rage, not to that capacity. But I know Harry Dunn. I know Sergeant Cannell. I know those human beings.
Good man.
Right. What they endured through no fault of their own, what they stood up for, which was the very people in that building who will not hang the plaque that honors those who died that day. They don't have the plaque they're supposed to have by law. Mike Johnson doesn't even want to talk about the plaque. More than that, now they're potentially going to support the architect, arguably not the architect, but the impetus for the architecture of that attack, and the one who watched it unfold for 120 minutes. Did nothing. While Brian Sicknick was being sprayed with chemicals, while Sergeant Cannell was getting his body brutalized, while Bonone was having a heart attack, while our Capitol Police were enduring absolute hell. He watched it all unfold, hoping that it might be successful so that they could thwart the certification as required by the Constitution of the United States. And it failed. They failed. What I never expected, because I know Republicans that I talked to at the time who said, that's it. This is a red line. That is too much. This is too far for me. They've all voted for Trump now.
Yep.
So because there has been a prolonged and sustained and largely unchecked regular revision, normalization, downplaying of the events of that day to the point where it's become Orwellian, where you are no longer able to trust your own eyes and ears because we are telling you what you saw was not what you saw, what you heard was not what you heard. How you can hold these truths in one hand or two hands at the same time, no one is ever going to be able to explain it to me. But how that event could be perpetrated by Antifa and the deep state and Nancy Pelosi, and yet they could be beautiful people that Donald Trump needs to pardon because it was legitimate political discourse, peaceful protest. How those two things can exist at the same time, I'll never understand. But he's going to pardon them. He's probably going to pardon some of, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised, some of the most violent ones. It makes sense that he would do that for himself because he needs to rebuild his army. And also now he'll lofted up to cult-like status more than he already is. But the men and women who endured that attack are now being flipped around and turned into crisis actors and liars, and the perpetrators of the attack, the terrorists of the attack, are being, they're going to, I have this feeling that he's going to give them, they're calling it Patriots Day now. Did you know that? Yep. He's going to give them some kind of parade, some kind of day. He's going to do that, and they're going to be celebrated. Think about that. Like,
so disgusting. So disgusting.
I just can't. It's just, yeah.
JoJo, they call themselves the Law and Order Party, and only when it's convenient for them. They say they're pro-police only when it's convenient for them. And you're right, Donald Trump, for several hours, sat on his fat ass in the White House, did nothing. It was begged to put out a video. It took him hours to do anything. And Melania Trump, we know this through Stephanie Grisham's text messages. Melania's response, no, she wouldn't put out a video and do anything. It's just awful. Yeah, she cared more about that than that's her big accomplishment in tennis courts. It's just despicable. He's supposed to be sentenced on Friday, but we know that he will never really face punishment because he was reelected as president. Quite unfortunate, and the next 4 years are going to be chaotic. I think that's a nice way of putting it. I wanted to ask you one more question on a lighthearted note. Okay. Watching Don Jr., as I like to call him, Biff, and Charlie Kirk, how manly and sexy did they look in Greenland yesterday?
Can we just talk about like the absurdity of this right now? You got a guy, okay, there's a community college dropout with a head that looks like an engorged tick. And
you're right, it does.
And Twitchy, the Nepo baby, who couldn't accomplish literally a thing. The guy hasn't mastered standing yet. In Greenland as our conquerors of an island that does not need to be conquered nor want to be conquered, and they're going from bar to bar like, yes, you want us to conquer. And even we're just talking about conquering anything, but those are our conquerors. Like, it's like the whitest white boys, like their hands are so soft. The hardest thing that Don Jr. probably has to contend with in a day is which of his guest bathrooms is going to get the new bidet. Like, which one is going to get the butt washer? Because my upstairs bathroom butt washer just doesn't do the job anymore. I need a new. Like, this is the hardest decision that chinless FUCK has to contend with in a day, and yet he's there, completely unelected. Let's talk about Hunter Biden, shall we? He's done the F out of all of this. Can you imagine if Joe Biden sent Hunter to freaking Greenland and said, you are the conqueror of Greenland, go negotiate a deal where we take over Greenland? They would have lost they would have impeached Hunter. They would have impeached the dog. They would have impeached they would have impeached dead people. Like, it is pure lunacy, and you have to laugh. Don Jr. needed his daddy to intervene in another country so he could shoot an endangered sheep. Endangered sheep. First of all, who needs to shoot a sheep just on a whim? And why, like,
it's true.
Why do you gotta go shoot an endangered one? So this is the guy who needed that, and he needed his daddy to intervene to send his babysitter to Greece, and now he's our conqueror of Greenland. Like,
yeah. Two of the biggest tools on the planet. That was what entered my mind yesterday. I'm wondering what their wives are. Well, I know Don Jr. isn't married, and I don't know where Kimberly Guilfoyle is. I know he's got a new one now. Yeah, I'm wondering, like, the women in their life, I guess, like, what could they possibly be thinking looking at them in Greenland going from bar to bar yesterday, looking like absolute doofuses? Like, I don't understand. What could be going through their mind?
They were probably thinking, well, at least they're not here, so I don't have to touch them for a little while. Like
that's true.
I'd be thinking, stay there in Greenland, because I miss you, and I would be crying. I miss you so much. How much longer? You should really stay. It's God's work. It's God's work.
Yeah, stay in Greenland. Just stay there for a couple months, Charlie. Stay there.
Yeah, and it's not as if you're worried that they're going to be getting side pieces, because let's be honest, I mean, like they look like some kind of upside down Beavis and Butthead. It's like, crappy.
Wait a second, Jojo, I heard that they're all MAGA in Greenland, aren't they?
Oh,
they're all crazy for Don Jr. and Charlie Kirk. Like that's like their Brad Pitt, right? Like that's what I heard.
You didn't know that great big Greenlandians came up to them with tears in their eyes, and they said, big head and crackhead. And they said, incel and nepo baby. I love you. How? How can you save Greenland the way you saved Greenland, better than anyone in the history of time?
Yeah.
And what's wrong with your chin? Where did it go?
Yeah, where did his chin go? I think they're afraid they're probably going to steal from them, like they stole from Don Jr. stole from his own Trump charity. That's probably what they're afraid of there. Or maybe maybe next time Charlie shows up, he'll pay Kyle Rittenhouse to come with him and make a speech in Greenland. That'll be the next thing that Charlie Kirk does. I don't know. Yeah. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. And I have a feeling they'll be back in Greenland too. Well, JoJo, what's that?
Maybe they could just stay there.
Yeah, I wish they would. I would feel bad for the people of Greenland, but I wish they would. Trust me on that one. I think Melania wished that Donald Trump would pay him a one-way ticket to Greenland and don't come back either. But
is he allowed legally to even travel to Greenland?
Well, he's a felon, so probably not. Actually,
right?
That's a really good question. Probably not. JoJo, yeah, we should find out about that. Is Donald Trump allowed to travel to Greenland? Very good question that you asked. I love following you on social media. Big fan of what you do, as you know, JoJo. Thank you so much for always taking the time to do this show, and we will talk to you soon among the chaos.
Yeah.
We will certainly catch up to you soon, but you're always been one of my – you and Ron Filipowski are my top two on socials. You and Ron are the best. Well, Ron does my show. You do my show. Yeah,
and Ron and I are good friends. Yeah, and you and I have so many mutuals because –
We do.
Yeah, because we have good taste in people. I think that's.
I would like to think that is true. Like to think that is true. Some people could debate me on that, but I would like to think that is true, and I'm happy to call you a friend. Yes,
I'm happy to call you a friend too. Thank you so much for having me on.
Means a lot, JoJo. You have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That is Joanna Carducci, everybody, also known as JoJo from Jerz. She is the best. I met her through my friend Pete Dominick. Now, if you don't know who Pete Dominick is, he does CNN all the time. I think he was on CNN yesterday. And I'm actually doing his podcast tomorrow. Pete's on CNN panels all the time. He's done Colbert. He's done The Late Show with Jay Leno. He's done everything. He's a great comedian and a really smart guy. And I met JoJo through Pete Dominick. All right, so here's what we're going to do.